you are probably juggling like 1,000 things right now.
At least 1,000, yeah.
Right. I mean, you've got notifications lighting up your screen, you've got deadlines hovering over your head, and maybe you're quietly worrying about, a slightly awkward conversation you had yesterday.
Or a really high-stakes meeting you have tomorrow.
Exactly. You are carrying it all. We all are. It's basically the modern condition to just be absolutely weighed down by the sheer volume of our own lives.
Yeah, you wake up, and before your feet even hit the floor, you're already mentally hauling around this massive, this totally invisible backpack of anxieties.
Right. Anxieties, obligations, and the perceived expectations of just everyone around you.
It is a staggering way to exist. I mean, when you really look at the mechanics of it.
It really is.
We've completely normalized this chronic state of psychological encumbrance. Like, we operate under this collective assumption that feeling perpetually burdened or, slightly panicked and stretched thin is just the mandatory cost of participating in modern society.
Like it's just the entry fee.
Right. We treat stress not as a reaction to something bad, but as an atmospheric condition we simply have to breathe in every day.
But the core premise we're tackling today is that this burdensome way of living is, well, it's completely optional.
Totally optional, yeah.
Our mission on this deep dive is to explore a profound historical source document that offers a radical alternative. It's simply titled The 12th Book.
The 12th book, right.
Yeah, and specifically, we are analyzing a section called On Living Rightly to the End.
Which is quite a title.
It is. And before we even get into the philosophy, I just want to set the visual stage for you, the listener, because the physical document itself almost demands like a physiological shift when you look at it.
Oh, absolutely. The aesthetic of the source text immediately pulls you out of the modern rhythm.
Yeah.
I mean, you aren't looking at a sterile digital font here.
Right. It looks like an ancient, perfectly preserved manuscript. The very first thing that hits your eye is this striking, bold, red letter W at the start of the text.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's massive compared to the surrounding words. It looks almost like a wax seal on a royal decree,
That's a great way to put it.
When you see it, you get this immediate, visceral feeling that you are stepping out of the noisy, hyper-connected timeline of your daily life, and you're descending into something carefully guarded. It feels weighty.
And that weight is entirely justified by what the text actually attempts to do. I mean, this isn't a collection of light affirmations.
No, definitely not.
It's a rigorous, almost surgical instruction manual for cutting through the chaos of daily existence. The author is laying out a blueprint for absolute emotional regulation.
And total detachment from the things that drain us.
Right. And we aren't just talking about, finding a few moments of peace on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The stakes here are much higher.
They really are.
This is about maintaining impenetrable tranquility in the face of absolute chaos, toxic people, and ultimately, our own mortality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we are talking about a framework that can actually neutralize the heavy backpack of modern anxiety, we really need to understand exactly how it works.
We do.
And the text starts by fundamentally deconstructing who we think we are. According to the 12th book, human existence isn't just one solid thing. It's divided into 3 distinct parts.
Right.
The body, the life, and the mind.
And the language used to describe these parts is intentionally provocative. Like, the author refers to the physical body as a pampered mass of flesh.
A pampered mass of flesh. I mean, it's such a jarring phrase.
It really is.
Especially in our current culture where we are so obsessed with optimizing, hydrating, and preserving our bodies.
Yeah, it's jarring, but it serves a very specific philosophical purpose. What's fascinating here is that the text is forcing a cognitive wedge between your consciousness and your physical form.
Oh, interesting.
It argues that out of those 3 elements, the body, the life, and the mind, only the mind truly belongs to you.
And the other 2.
Well, the body and the life, which in this context refers to your circumstances, your animating breath, your trajectory through the physical world, they're classified as manifold luggage.
Manifold luggage.
Exactly. You are tethered to them. You have to care for them, but you do not own them. They are subject to decay, disease, and the absolute whims of fate.
So my physical body, the fact that I have a certain job, the city I live in, these are essentially just suitcases I'm carrying through the airport of existence.
That's a perfect analogy.
I have to drag them onto the carousel. I have to make sure they don't pop open and spill everywhere, but they aren't fundamentally me.
Right, and this is where the text gets incredibly prescriptive about how to achieve happiness. The first section outlines a 3-step process for handling this luggage.
Okay, what are the steps?
First, referring oneself wholly to divine providence, meaning just accepting the overarching order of the universe. Second, anchoring your focus entirely on the present moment.
Which is harder than it sounds.
Oh, much harder. And third, and most crucially, aggressively separating the mind from past actions, future anxieties, and the words and actions of other people.
So just cutting it all off.
Yes, the author explicitly states we must let the mind live by herself and to herself.
The boundary the author draws here is absolute. Anything outside the immediate jurisdiction of your own reasoning will is categorized as a dead thing.
A dead thing, yes.
The text uses this fantastic phrase, mere smoke. If you cannot control it, it is just smoke.
And if we look at the psychology behind that boundary, I mean, it aligns incredibly well with modern cognitive behavioral therapies.
Oh, for sure.
The text is arguing that our suffering comes from misidentifying with the smoke. We think our social reputation is us. We think our past mistakes are us.
Right, we wrap our identity up in all of it.
Exactly. But by severing the mind from those external elements, you drop the luggage. You achieve what the author calls great rest and ease.
The visual metaphor the text uses for the state of mind is Empedocles' allegorical sphere.
Yeah, that's a beautiful image.
It says we should make our minds all round and circular. A perfect sphere doesn't have any jagged edges to catch on the environment.
Right.
It is completely self-contained. It just rolls smoothly over the terrain. If your mind is a perfect sphere, the chaotic world can't grab hold of you and drag you in a direction you don't want to go.
The sphere represents the ultimate state of mental autonomy. It isn't deformed by the gravitational pull of external desires, and it isn't dented by the pressure of external fears.
It's just solid.
Exactly. Its only concern is its own internal integrity and acting justly in the present instant.
Now, I understand the theory, but taking my past mistakes in my physical body and calling them luggage, I mean, that feels like a massive leap.
How so?
Well, if I'm walking through the dark and I stub my toe on a piece of furniture, or if I completely humiliate myself in front of my peers during a presentation, my mind definitely feels it.
Sure.
The physical and the mental feel super glued together. There's a deeply ingrained sympathy, to use the text's own word, between the flesh and the mind. It's like trying to be a smooth, perfectly round bowling ball on a lane that is completely covered in jagged gravel.
Right, you're going to hit the gravel.
The gravel's going to leave dents. How do we actually keep the outside world from leaving dents?
That is the friction point of the entire philosophy,
Right.
and it requires us to separate the sensation from the narrative. The text never claims you won't feel the stubbed toe.
Okay.
Early on, when discussing the pampered mass of flesh, it says, "For let that which suffers look to itself." It fully acknowledges the biological reality of pain.
So the pain is real.
The physical sensation is totally inevitable. The gravel will hit the bowling ball, but the dent isn't the pain. The dent is the story your mind constructs about the pain.
Ah, okay. So the body registers the throbbing toe, but it's the mind that decides to be furious about it for the next 3 hours.
Exactly. The mind is the narrator saying, "Why does this always happen to me? This completely ruined my morning. I'm so clumsy."
And that narrative is the luggage.
That narrative is the luggage. The physical pain is just raw data. The suffering, the anxiety, the lingering anger that is the smoke.
Wow.
That is the secondary layer you are choosing to add to the raw data. By making the mind a sphere, you're training your prefrontal cortex to observe the physical pain or the social embarrassment without letting it hijack your reasoning faculty.
So you experience the event, but you don't let it deform the sphere.
Precisely.
So for you listening right now, try to run a quick diagnostic on the luggage you were dragging around today.
Yeah, that's a great exercise.
Think about the specific things causing you stress. How much of that weight is anchored in something that already happened? An email you phrased poorly yesterday, a missed opportunity last year.
Or, on the flip side, how much of it is anchored in the future? A looming deadline, a fear of how a conversation might go next week. If you strip away the past and the future, how much of your anxiety actually exists right here in this exact present second?
If we're ruthlessly honest with ourselves, almost all of our psychological distress is luggage.
It really is. And the text is militant about this. It commands us to forget all that is past and to leave the future to providence.
You just cut it loose.
The only domain we are meant to inhabit is the present, applying all our thoughts to holiness and righteousness, which simply means acting with integrity right now. It asks us to think of no longer life than that which is now present.
But keeping our focus strictly on the present is incredibly difficult when we are constantly surrounded by other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is actually a perfect segue into one of the most brilliant psychological observations in the entire text. Section 3 presents a paradox about human behavior that is so accurate it actually stings a little bit.
Yeah, it's a tough one to read. The author writes, I have often wondered how it should come to pass that every man loving himself best should more regard other men's opinions concerning himself than his own.
It is a profound contradiction.
It really is.
We are entirely self-obsessed. Every human is the undisputed main character of their own internal movie.
Totally.
We care about our own survival, our own comfort, our own desires more than anything else, and yet we will betray our own values, exhaust ourselves financially, and lose sleep over what a random neighbor or a distant coworker thinks about us.
Right. We elevate their casual, fleeting thoughts above our own deeply held convictions about ourselves.
We do. It makes no sense.
The text highlights the absurdity of this with a thought experiment. It proposes a scenario where a god or grave master stands over someone and commands them to instantly speak aloud every single thought that crosses their mind.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Imagine how terrifying that would be today. Let's update the analogy for you listening.
Go for it.
Imagine waking up tomorrow to find that a new app or operating system on your phone is automatically broadcasting your unfiltered, unedited internal monologue over a loudspeaker to your entire office.
Oh.
Or directly to your family's group chat. Every petty grievance, every weird tangent, every irrational fear, we would be completely paralyzed with shame.
We couldn't endure it for a single day, as the author points out. And the reason we couldn't endure it reveals a massive vulnerability in our psychology.
What's that?
We fear our neighbor's thoughts of us more than we fear our own thoughts.
Oh, wow.
Right? We sit comfortably all day long with our own chaotic, embarrassing, or dark internal monologues. We forgive ourselves for them instantly. But the moment we imagine someone else hearing those thoughts and forming an opinion about them, we are horrified.
Because we have effectively outsourced our self-worth to the electrochemical signals happening in the brains of strangers.
Exactly. We outsource our self-worth.
Outsourcing your self-worth is a disastrous strategy. Because going back to the very first principle we discussed, the minds of other people are completely outside the jurisdiction of your will.
They fall squarely into the category of dead things and mere smoke.
We are letting uncontrollable smoke dictate our internal weather.
Which is why the text solution in Section 9X is so uncompromising. It doesn't tell you to try and manage people's opinions or to build a better personal brand.
Right.
It commands, cast away from the opinion, and thou art safe. Safety here isn't about physical protection. It's about psychological sovereignty. You only achieve that safety when you strip away the value you place on external judgment.
The metaphor the author uses in Section 9/16 to describe the feeling of casting away opinion is incredibly vivid. It compares the experience to a ship that has stricken in within the arms and mouth of the harbor, a present, calm, all things safe and steady a bay, not capable of any storms and tempests.
The open ocean is the perfect representation of public opinion, social expectations, and office politics.
It's just inherently volatile.
The winds change without warning. If you live your life on that open water, constantly adjusting your sails to catch the shifting winds of other people's approval, you will inevitably be battered by a storm you didn't see coming.
So picture yourself out there in the tempest. Maybe you're dealing with a massive failure at work or, a toxic family dynamic where everyone is whispering about you.
Right.
The wind is howling, the waves are crashing over the deck. You are exhausted from trying to keep the ship upright. And then you suddenly remember, wait, every single piece of this storm is just opinion.
It's all smoke.
It is entirely generated in the minds of others. It has no physical substance. The moment you truly internalize that, it's like your ship instantly glides past a massive stone breakwater into a walled, silent bay.
The water inside is like glass.
The storm is still raging out on the ocean. You can see the waves crashing against the outside of the wall, but inside the harbor of your own mind. Complete safety, present calm.
Achieving that calm requires recognizing a neurological reality. When someone insults you or gossips about you, what is actually happening?
Just noise, right?
Synapses are firing in their brain, causing their vocal cords to vibrate, pushing air towards your eardrums. That is the physical reality.
That's it.
The damage only occurs when your brain interprets those sound waves, assigns them massive social weight, and triggers a stress response. The text reminds us that all opinion depends of the mind. If you revoke your mind's permission to value their opinion, the storm ceases to exist for you.
But you don't just magically arrive in that calm harbor simply by understanding the concept.
No, definitely not.
The text recognizes that our brains are evolutionarily wired to care about the tribe's opinion because, well, historically, being exiled meant starvation.
Right, it's a survival instinct.
Rewiring that instinct requires grueling mental conditioning. And sections V and 6 provide a fascinating framework for how we actually train for this. The text advises us to practice even the things we despair of.
It advocates for a very specific type of deliberate practice, using a highly relatable physical metaphor, the left hand.
The left hand.
Yeah, the author notes that for most people, the left hand is idle and weak when it comes to general tasks.
But when it comes to the highly specific, difficult task of holding a horse's bridle, that weak left hand holds it with more strength and stability than the dominant right hand.
Exactly. And the only reason it can do that is because it is used to it. It has been exposed to that specific strain repeatedly.
The psychological application here is profound. Your mind might naturally recoil at the thought of losing your job, facing a severe illness, or dealing with a hostile confrontation.
You might feel like you lack the emotional strength to handle those things.
But if you mentally habituate yourself to those concepts, if you actively practice holding the bridle of adversity in your mind before it actually happens, it becomes second nature, you build cognitive calluses.
You do.
But why should we spend time on our weaknesses when modern advice usually says, lean into your strengths? I can see the modern self-help industry rejecting this completely.
They would.
The prevailing wisdom right now is almost entirely focused on positive manifestation. We are told to lean into our strengths, to visualize success, and to outsource our weaknesses.
Right.
If I'm terrible at accounting, I don't force myself to do complex math until my left hand is strong. I hire a CPA. Why should we spend precious mental energy dwelling on worst-case scenarios and practicing despair?
Because you cannot outsource existential dread.
Wow.
You can hire an accountant, sure, but you cannot hire someone to face your mortality for you. You cannot outsource the grief of losing a loved one or the shock of a sudden betrayal.
Right.
The text is advocating for an ancient form of exposure therapy. If you only ever visualize success and comfort, your mind remains fragile. When the inevitable tragedy strikes, your worldview shatters.
So by practicing the things you despair of,
You are immunizing your mind against the shock of reality. You are training the mind to remain intact when the universe inevitably introduces chaos.
and the author's very pragmatic about the nature of that universe. In section 11, the text lays out two fundamental options for how reality operates.
Right.
Either the universe is governed by an absolute necessity, an unavoidable decree, or a placable and flexible providence. Or, on the flip side, all is a mere casual confusion, void of all order and government.
The author is essentially saying, pick your cosmological worldview. Whether you believe in a meticulously designed divine plan, or you believe we are just random atoms crashing into each other in a cold, chaotic void, the philosophical requirement on you remains exactly the same.
It doesn't change your job.
Exactly. If
Yeah.
it is destiny, why fight it? If it is providence, strive to be worthy of it. But what if it is just a flood of random, meaningless confusion?
Well, the text argues that even in a flood of random confusion, you still have a reason to congratulate yourself.
Yeah, you do.
Because within that chaotic flood, you possess a reasonable faculty, your mind. It acknowledges that your physical body, your wealth, your circumstances might be swept away by the flood. But your mind cannot be drowned unless you allow it.
It compares the reasoning mind to a candle that continues to shine brightly until the very moment it is extinguished.
That's beautiful.
The surrounding darkness and chaos do not change the nature of the candle's light.
To maintain that light when the floodwaters rise, the author gives us another operational metaphor in section 6. It's perhaps one of the most iconic images in the document for how to carry ourselves through adversity.
Yeah, this is a great one.
It instructs us to act like a pancratiastes rather than a gladiator.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the distinction between the two is a masterclass in resilience.
For context, for those who don't know, a gladiator in ancient Rome fought with specific weaponry, usually a sword and a shield. But a pancratiastes was an athlete who competed in pancration, which was this absolutely brutal, virtually no rules ancient Greek sport that combined boxing and wrestling.
They fought entirely barehanded.
Right.
The gladiator is entirely reliant on external tools. His survival depends on the sword in his hand. If he drops the sword or if his shield shatters, he is defenseless and likely dead. His power is derived from an object outside of himself.
But the pancratiastes,
He relies exclusively on his own physical form and his adaptability.
Yeah.
He is never unarmed because his weapon is his own body and mind. He always has his hand free, which he may easily turn and manage at his will.
If we map this onto our modern lives, relevant to your career or life, a gladiator represents anyone who derives their identity and their sense of security from external luggage.
A modern gladiator's sword might be a prestigious job title at a massive tech company.
Right, or a specific software they know how to use, or a massive bank balance, or even just their physical youth and beauty.
They feel incredibly powerful as long as they're holding that sword. But the moment an economic downturn hits and they are laid off, or the market crashes, or they simply age, the sword is knocked out of their hand.
And because they invested their entire identity into that external object, they are completely destroyed. They have no idea who they are without it.
They lack internal scaffolding. The pancratiastes, conversely, represents a person whose core competency is their adaptable mind.
They might have the prestigious job and the wealth, but they don't confuse those things with their core identity.
Exactly. Their true skill is their ability to think clearly, to learn rapidly, to pivot when circumstances change, and to act with integrity. You can strip a pancratiastes of everything. They can take their money, ruin their reputation, remove their comforts, and they remain a formidable force.
They're still capable.
They are still dangerous to the chaos because their power is entirely internalized.
It is the pinnacle of self-reliance. You are training to face the unpredictability of existence, armed with nothing but the strength of your own character.
Right.
And let's be honest, the arena where that character gets tested most brutally isn't usually in grand, tragic events. It's in our daily interactions with other people.
Oh, absolutely. Other people are the ultimate test.
How we handle the people who wrong us is where this philosophy gets incredibly challenging. Sections 9, X, and 12 tackle the inevitability of human sin and the absurdity of anger.
The text establishes a baseline premise that requires a massive paradigm shift. It states, "Whatsoever doth happen in the ordinary course and consequence of natural events, none then must be accused."
Wait,
Yes. The logic flows like this. The overarching nature of the universe does not make mistakes. When human beings err or commit evil acts, they do so exclusively out of ignorance of what is truly good. Therefore, it is against their wills that they do anything amiss.
so it essentially argues for a radical form of determinism when it comes to human behavior.
Very radical, yeah.
When someone wrongs you, they are operating under a flawed internal operating system. The text paints a tragic picture of the wrongdoer. It says that when someone sins, they are essentially condemning themselves.
It compares a person committing an evil act to someone frantically scratching and tearing at their own face.
Which is horrifying.
It is. And because of this, the text explicitly states that the person who wrongs you is an object of compassion rather than of anger.
Wait, so if someone maliciously lies to you or steals from you, this text is saying it's just a tragic flaw in their operating system.
Because what are they actually doing? They're corroding their own character. They're damaging the only thing that truly belongs to them, their reasoning mind.
Okay, I see that.
The author is asking, why would you feel burning anger towards someone who is actively mutilating their own soul? Pity is the only rational response. The text further argues that it is mathematically ridiculous to be surprised by bad behavior. Vicious, ignorant people exist in the world. Therefore, vicious people must act viciously.
The analogies used here are deeply rooted in nature. Expecting a toxic person not to act toxic is like demanding a fig have no moisture.
Or a child not weep.
Or a horse not neigh. Now, I have to push back firmly right here.
Right, they do.
Because logically, this sounds like a recipe for becoming a complete doormat. If a coworker maliciously takes credit for my project, or someone actively lies to manipulate a situation against me, the text seems to be saying I should just look at them and think, the horse is neighing, the thief is stealing, it's just nature, and feel pity for them. That sounds incredibly passive. Shouldn't we hold people accountable? Anger has a utility. Anger is the biological signal that a boundary has been crossed. If we just pity everyone and write off their malicious behavior as inevitable natural phenomena, aren't we just enabling injustice?
It is the most frequent and understandable pushback against this school of thought. But it stems from conflating internal emotional state with external action.
Okay.
The text absolutely does not advocate for passive complicity. There is a critical, highly pragmatic caveat embedded at the end of Section 12. When discussing the person acting out of a vicious habit, The author instructs, if thou therefore beest powerful and eloquent, remedy it if thou canst.
Remedy if thou canst. So action is required. You don't just observe the horse neighing in your living room.
Exactly. If a horse is repeatedly kicking your fence and breaking it, you do not stand there getting emotionally devastated by the horse's behavior.
Yeah.
You don't take it personally. But you absolutely do reinforce the fence, or you move the horse to a different paddock. If a coworker is lying and stealing credit, you document their behavior. You correct the record publicly. You take it to HR. You fiercely protect your boundaries in your work.
And this is the psychological masterstroke, you execute those remedies with a cold, clear, unbothered mind.
Yes.
You act surgically without the internal corrosive rage that spikes your cortisol and ruins your weekend. You recognize that their deceit is a manifestation of their own corrupted nature. It's a them problem that requires your logistical management, not your emotional participation.
It is about decoupling the necessary logistical response from the exhausting emotional narrative.
I want to challenge you, the listener, right now. Think of the person who frustrated you the most this week.
Yeah.
The person who really made your blood boil. Picture them.
We all have one.
How many hours did you spend mentally arguing with them in the shower? How much energy did you burn, wondering why they are so difficult, or plotting how to make them see how wrong they are?
The text is giving you permission to stop wondering why.
Why?
They act that way because their current nature, clouded by their specific ignorance and circumstances, dictates they act that way.
Right.
Expecting them to suddenly operate with perfect rationality and kindness is as absurd as demanding the fig be dry. It is a mathematically flawed expectation, and that flawed expectation is the root cause of your frustration.
Imagine the sheer volume of mental energy you would save if you viewed their predictable toxicity the same way you view a sudden rainstorm.
You don't yell at the rain for being wet.
You just open an umbrella, you hear the toxic comment, you think, yep, there goes the horse. You deploy your logistical umbrella to protect yourself, and you move on with your day completely unscathed. The noise never penetrates the sphere.
And if you find yourself struggling to maintain that level of detachment, the text offers a powerful cognitive exercise designed to force a perspective shift. It spans sections 8, 9x, xx, and x3, and it's a technique commonly referred to by philosophers as the view from above.
Oh, this is one of my absolute favorite concepts.
It's so effective.
The text tells us to aggressively manipulate our sense of scale. It instructs us to mentally zoom out, to look down from on high, as it were, and observe the totality of the earth. You look at the wonderful mutability of things, the fact that empires rise and fall, cities crumble, oceans shift.
Right.
And then you contrast that with the infinite, ancient greatness of the stars and the celestial bodies surrounding us.
The intention is to induce a deliberate sense of insignificance. When you reframe your perception against the vastness of cosmic time and physical space, the things that consume our daily thoughts, the things we are so deeply proud of or so incredibly anxious about, suddenly reveal themselves to be incredibly vain, trivial, and fleeting.
The author grounds this cosmic exercise with some very pointed, very specific historical name-dropping.
Yeah, he gets very specific.
In section XX, the text prompts the reader to think about individuals who were consumed by extraordinary indignation, or people who had achieved the absolute highest pinnacle of worldly honor, or factions locked in bitter mutual hatred. And then it lists them: Fabius Catilinus, Lucius Lupus, Stertinius at Baiae, Tiberius at Capria, Velleius Rufus.
To understand the impact of this list, you have to realize these weren't obscure people.
No.
These were the titans of their era. They were emperors, legendary generals, and the ultra-elite. Take Baiae, for example. Baiae wasn't just a town. It was the ultimate hedonistic resort destination for the wealthiest, most powerful Romans.
It was like the Hamptons on steroids.
Exactly. It was a place of immense political scheming, scandal, and unimaginable luxury. Or consider Capreae, modern-day Capri, where the Emperor Tiberius retreated to rule the entire known world in a state of absolute paranoia and debauchery.
These people were the absolute center of the universe. Their rivalries, their status symbols, their political maneuverings, it felt like the most critical, enduring drama in human history.
And then the text drops the hammer. It asks, then consider what's now become of all those things. And the brutal, undeniable answer: all is turned to smoke, all to ashes, and a mere fable, and perchance not so much as a fable.
So what does this all mean? These specific historical figures, with their burning hatreds, their massive egos, their luxurious villas, are now just footnotes.
They're literally just ash blowing in the wind.
They're reduced to brief words in an old manuscript.
It is a devastating reality check for the human ego. It aggressively shrinks our modern anxieties down to their proper microscopic dimensions.
Are you losing sleep because you were passed over for a promotion? Are you locked in a multi-year bitter feud with a neighbor over a property line?
Right? Or are you endlessly chasing the next status symbol to prove your worth to your peers?
The view from above reminds you that in a microscopic fraction of cosmic time, you, your neighbor, the property line, the promotion, and the company itself will all be smoke and fable.
The text labels all objects of such earnest and vehement prosecution as vile. Not vile in a moral evil sense, but vile meaning cheap, common, and unworthy of a rational mind's full devotion.
It strips away all the pretense. And speaking of the ego's pretense, there's a laser-focused critique in section XX that feels like it was written yesterday specifically to call out modern internet culture.
Oh, this quote is incredible.
The text says, "For a man to be proud and high-conceited, that he is not proud and high-conceited is of all kind of pride and presumption the most intolerable."
It is the ancient diagnosis of performative humility.
Yes.
The fact that the author was dealing with this thousands of years ago proves how deeply wired this trap is in the human psyche.
We see this constantly. It is the quintessential humble brag. It's the influencer who posts a highly produced video about how they gave up all their material possessions to live in a minimalist van, or the executive who loudly proclaims they meditate for 3 hours a day to achieve total ego death.
Right, they're doing these things specifically to broadcast how enlightened and unattached they are.
They are immensely proud of their lack of pride.
And the author is essentially rolling his eyes, saying that this is the most insufferable arrogance of all because it is entirely hypocritical. You haven't actually escaped the trap of valuing external opinion. You've just figured out a new, sneakier way to play the game.
You're just competing to see who can perform humility the best.
True philosophical living, as outlined in section XD3, doesn't result in feelings of superiority. When you genuinely internalize the view from above, you recognize that there is only one light of the sun, one common substance making up the earth, and one common intellectual soul, even though it appears divided among billions of individual bodies.
You don't feel elevated above the masses.
No, you feel deeply, inextricably connected to them as parts of a single functioning whole. You realize that your specific clod of earth is made of the exact same material as their clod of earth. There is zero logical room for pride when you realize you are just a temporary expression of a larger system.
Which inevitably brings us to the final, ultimate equalizer. The mechanism that guarantees we all return to that common substance. The final sections of the text, 4, XC, 50M, 61, and onward, steer directly into the most profound human anxiety.
The fear of death.
Exactly. The author confronts a very specific, agonizing question in section 4. He asks, why is it that the gods, who seemingly ordered the universe with such incredible precision and care, allowed this one glaring flaw that truly good men who have lived wholly just lives, when they die, are simply extinguished?
Why are they not permitted to return?
It is the universal question of grief. If human consciousness is so beautiful and life is such a gift, why is it revoked permanently?
The author's answer requires an immense, radical leap of trust in the architecture of reality. He concludes that if it were just, natural, and beneficial for good men to return from the dead, the nature of the universe would have designed it that way.
Right.
Because it doesn't happen, we must logically deduce that it wasn't fit to be so.
He is arguing from a position of ultimate design. If the organizing principle of the universe is rational and good, it could not have accidentally overlooked the finality of death.
Exactly. Therefore, death, in its exact, current, permanent form, must be a mathematically necessary and beneficial component of the whole system. In section C7, he builds on this logic. He points out that an operation or a task that ceases at its proper time does not suffer any evil simply because it has ended.
Human life is essentially a sequence of actions.
Yes. When that sequence reaches its natural period, its conclusion, it is not experiencing an evil. It is simply completing its function.
He argues that the components of the world are in a constant state of dissolution and recreation so that the universe as a whole can remain fresh and new.
From the perspective of the universe, death is highly seasonable. It is expedient. It clears the stage for the next necessary action.
Accepting this, of course, requires faith in an organizing intelligence we cannot see. The text anticipates this skepticism.
Right. In section XD1, the author imagines a critic asking him, "Where hast thou seen the gods? Or how knowest thou certainly that there be gods, that thou art so devout?"
The logic he uses to answer is fascinating. First, he says he can deduce their existence by observing the intricate machinery of their works.
But his second point is the real gut punch. He says, neither have I ever seen my own soul, and yet I respect and honor it.
Wow.
We constantly revere and trust invisible mechanisms because we consistently experience their outputs. He experiences the daily, systemic providence of the universe, the sunrise, the seasons, the capacity for human reason, and because he trusts the daily operation, he extends that trust to the final operation of death.
This profound trust culminates in the ultimate psychological goal of the text, mentioned in section 7th, to achieve the state of being theophordos.
Which is a Greek term that translates roughly to being divinely led and inspired. It describes a state where a person's individual will has been so deeply aligned with the overarching flow of nature that there is zero friction left. They are no longer swimming desperately against the current of reality. They have surrendered to the river, recognizing that the river knows exactly where it is going.
But even if we philosophically accept the reality of death, our modern anxiety usually shifts to the timing of it.
Oh, absolutely.
We feel deeply cheated if a life is cut short. We demand longevity. The text closes with what I think is the most beautiful, comforting metaphor I've ever encountered for dismantling the anxiety around the length of a life.
Yeah, this is incredibly moving.
It compares human existence to a theatrical play.
Section 27. It begins by reminding the reader that they have lived as a citizen in the great city of the world. It asks, why should it be a source of grief if the exact same nature that brought you onto the stage now dictates it is time for you to exit?
It compares the universe to a Roman praetor, the magistrate who funded, cast, and directed the public theatrical games.
The text says, it is as if the praetor should fairly dismiss him from the stage, whom he had taken in to act a while.
And the author immediately voices our natural human complaint. The dismissed actor cries out, "Oh, but the play is not yet at an end. There are but 3 acts yet acted of it."
We do this constantly.
We do. Someone passes away in their 30s, or a specific wonderful chapter of our own life ends abruptly, and our immediate reaction is to scream at the universe, "It wasn't a full life. We didn't get to 5 acts. It's incomplete."
And how does the text respond? It says, thou hast well said, for, in matter of life, 3 acts is the whole play.
3 acts is the whole play. It is a paradigm-shattering thought.
Think about how much of our daily dread and anxiety is generated by our stubborn demand that every life must be 5 acts long. We impose a narrative structure on reality that reality never agreed to.
Right.
The author of the composition, the praetor, dictates the length of the script. For that specific actor, their entire cosmic purpose was to perform those 3 acts.
That was the complete perfect play for them. It wasn't cut short, it was finished.
This raises an important question. How much time are we wasting demanding a longer script instead of just acting out the one we have?
It fundamentally changes how you measure value. I mean, it's like complaining a movie ended early when the director actually wrapped up the perfect story. You don't evaluate a piece of music solely by its duration.
No, definitely not.
You don't say a 12-minute symphony is objectively superior to a 3-minute song just because it lasted longer. You evaluate it by how beautiful, how resonant, and how true the melody was while the notes were playing.
Exactly. If the song was designed to be 3 minutes long, then 3 minutes was the entirety of the masterpiece. Your only responsibility is to play your assigned notes beautifully while the music is going.
The text concludes with a final instruction based on this reality. It reminds us that the timing of our entrance and our exit belongs entirely to the one who composed us.
We have jurisdiction over neither.
Therefore, the only logical, peaceful response to the end of the play is, "Go thy ways, then well-pleased and contented, for so is he that dismisseth thee."
So beautiful.
So, if we pull all these threads together, we have journeyed through a massive, profound psychological toolkit today. We started by staring at a red-letter W on an ancient page, and we've decoded a framework for making the mind an impenetrable sphere capable of rolling smoothly over the jagged gravel of physical and emotional pain.
We've examined the mechanics of dropping the heavy luggage of past regrets and future anxieties to live strictly in the present instant.
We analyzed the evolutionary glitch that makes us fear the empty smoke of other people's opinions, and we learned how to steer our mental ship into a fortified harbor of calm.
We explored the rigorous training of the pancreatiastes, learning to rely entirely on our internal adaptability rather than fragile external swords.
We mapped out a strategy for handling toxic behavior without sacrificing our own peace, viewing the inevitable wrongs of others with the exact same unemotional logistics we'd use for a neighing horse or a sudden rainstorm.
We zoomed out to the stars to see the ashes of ancient emperors, realizing that the things we stress over today are destined to be forgotten smoke.
And finally, we dismantled the terror of an early exit, recognizing that whether our specific script calls for 3 acts or 5, the play is always complete exactly when the curtain falls.
The immense value of this specific text is that it doesn't demand perfection on day one. It offers a practice. You don't need to suddenly acquire external armor to survive the modern world. You already possess the only weapon you need.
A reasoning mind.
A reasoning mind capable of distinguishing the solid substance of the present moment from the suffocating smoke of everything else.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought, because understanding a philosophy intellectually is useless unless it alters your behavior in the physical world.
Right, it has to be applied.
So consider this. If you are simply an actor on a stage and the universe is a praetor who could dismiss you at any moment without warning, and your only actual responsibility is to play your current scene with absolute integrity without wasting a single ounce of energy worrying about how many pages are left in the script, how does that change the very next action you're going to take when this deep dive ends?
It strips away all the excuses, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It leaves you with nothing but the immediate present.
It leaves you with the only thing that was ever truly yours. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Go play your scene well.